You are standing in the blistering desert wind, the smell of dust and blood thick in the air. The year is 1177. A boy king with a failing body sits upon a trembling horse. Baldwin IV, the leper king, his skin burning beneath metal plates, his hands hidden under gloves so no one sees how the disease has eaten him alive. Before him lies the impossible. 26,000 of Saladin's warriors, stretched across the horizon like an ocean of steel. Behind him, barely 500 knights and the broken remnants of a kingdom that believes it is already lost. The priests whisper prayers. The knights tighten their reins. And Baldwin whispers something no one expected. Charge. The desert holds its breath, because this is not a story about numbers. It is a story about faith against fear, courage against inevitability, and a sick child who refused to die quietly. This is the Battle of Montgisard, and nothing about it should have been possible. You are 8 years old, running through the stone corridors of Jerusalem, sunlight flooding through the arches like liquid gold. You laugh, carefree, breathless, alive, and then suddenly you fall. Not a hard fall, not a painful one, just a strange one. You hit the ground, but there is no sting, no shock, no feeling at all. Your tutor rushes to help. Your cousin watches with concern. But you, young Baldwin, push yourself up, confused. Something is wrong with your arm, your hand, but you can't quite explain it. Does it hurt? The tutor asks. You shake your head. And that is the beginning of the fear. Because an injury that does not hurt is worse than one that does. Doctors are summoned. Priests whisper. Your mother tries to hide her trembling hands as the physicians examine you, pressing your skin, pricking your nerves, watching your expression. The verdict arrives like a shadow crawling across the room. He does not feel pain in his right arm. It is not normal. They do not say the word at first. No one wants to. Leprosy, a curse older than kings. A disease that devours silently, without fire or fever, just numbness spreading. As the truth sinks in, Jerusalem's golden halls feel colder than any winter. Servants whisper. Courtiers turn their faces away, pretending not to watch you. Even as a child, you sense it. Something inside you is disappearing piece by piece. But you don't cry. You don't collapse into your mother's arms. Instead, a strange calm forms inside you. If anything should have broken you, it was this. But somehow it doesn't. Baldwin is still smiling, small, stubborn, defiant. A boy the world has already begun to fear. A boy destined to wear the crown anyway. A boy who refuses to fade quietly. The palace chapel glows with flickering candles, hundreds of them, dancing like trembling stars. And in the center of the room stands Baldwin, older now, perhaps 12, his face thinner, his right hand often hidden beneath a glove. He is not supposed to be king. He was never meant to be. But fate does not choose gently. His father, King Amalric, lies gravely ill. His sister Sibylla is too young. The nobles whisper about succession, power, opportunity. And somewhere within those whispers, Baldwin's name begins to echo, not as a choice, as a warning. A boy with a disease cannot rule. A leper cannot sit on Jerusalem's throne. A king who cannot even feel a sword cannot defend us. Yet every time the doubts rise, Baldwin's tutors and guardians speak of something else, something harder to measure. Will, presence, a strange, unbreakable dignity. Baldwin listens in silence as men twice his age argue about his future with voices that shake more than his own ever did. And when he finally speaks, the entire room falls quiet. Jerusalem needs a king, he says softly, and I will not run for what God gives me. It is not loud. It is not dramatic. But it is the sound of a boy stepping into a role meant for giants. The coronation comes weeks later. Banners flutter above the holy city. Bells ring across the rooftops. Priests chant ancient blessings. The sun sets behind the hills, staining the sky crimson. Baldwin kneels, feeling the weight of the crown descending toward him. It touches his hair, warm, heavy, final. In that moment, he understands something terrible. A king's body belongs to the kingdom, but his pain is his alone. Except Baldwin does not feel pain, not in the normal way. Instead, he feels a cold, creeping, spreading, constant. Inside his hands, his arms, his nerves. The disease is a quiet thief, stealing sensation day by day. Yet the new king rises, his crown gleaming in the firelight. A sick boy, yes, but a king nonetheless. A king many expect to bury soon. A king they underestimate. A king who is already learning to rule his fear better than he rules his kingdom. Night falls over Jerusalem, cool and silent. Baldwin sits alone on a balcony overlooking the desert, a desert that has swallowed armies, empires, and dreams. Yet he watches it the way other boys watch the sea. Curious, fearless, almost longing. He is 13 now. Leprosy grows worse. His fingers stiffen. His right hand can no longer grasp a sword properly. Sometimes he wakes with blood on the sheets, without realizing he has been bleeding at all. Doctors try poultices, prayers, miracle cures. Nothing helps. And still, Baldwin rides. Still, he trains. Still, he forces his dying flesh to obey him. Because what choice does he have? A king cannot limp. A king cannot flinch. A king cannot show weakness. Not in a land where Saladin gathers strength beyond the horizon. Not in a kingdom where barons hunger for power the way wolves hunger for meat. Every day Baldwin's body fails him. Every day Baldwin's resolve grows stronger. Pain cannot reach him. Fear cannot break him. And loneliness cannot drown him. He reads scrolls of ancient generals. He studies strategy with desperate intensity. He listens more than he speaks, thinks more than he reacts. And slowly, something astonishing begins to reveal itself. Not a sick child, not a doomed prince, but a mind sharp as a blade, a will that refuses surrender, a spirit forged like all iron in fire and pressure. On the training grounds, knights watch in awe as Baldwin mounts a horse with practiced grace. Even though his right leg trembles uncontrollably, he holds the reins with his left hand. He compensates. He adapts. When the horse breaks into a gallop, the boy king does not sway. He does not cry out. He does not falter. He rides like someone who has decided his body belongs to him, not to the disease. And in that moment, the soldiers watching him understand. This is no ordinary king. This is no tragic boy. This is someone dangerous. Someone unpredictable. Someone who might just defy everything written in prophecy and expectation. Someone Saladin should fear. The desert wind rises, cold and wild, brushing against Baldwin's scarred skin. But he does not shiver. He simply whispers into the night, "I will not die before I choose to." A promise, a prayer, a challenge, spoken by a king the world has already declared dead. Jerusalem looks majestic from afar, golden domes, sacred stones, the heartbeat of Christendom. But from Baldwin's throne, the truth is uglier. It is a kingdom made of arguments, ambition, and compromises stitched together with prayer. When Baldwin turns 14, he sits in the high court for the first time. The great lords gather, men with silver helmets, men with hunger in their eyes. They bow to him, but their loyalty bows to no one. Every conversation feels like a trap. Every compliment is a blade wrapped in silk. Count Raymond of Tripoli, whispering warnings about threats beyond the borders. Prince Bohemond, speaking loudly of honor yet quietly eyeing expansion. The Ibelins, the Lusignans, the Templars, every faction fighting for influence like wolves around a wounded stag. And Baldwin? He watches. He listens. And his disease, strangely, becomes an advantage. His face stays calm. His hands don't shake from fear, only numbness. His body feels less than other men's, but it also reveals less. They see a child king with failing flesh, but they do not see the calculations behind his pale eyes. They do not see how he memorizes every hesitation, every whisper, every glance exchanged between barons. They do not see how he starts reading the room the same way generals read battlefields. Jerusalem's court becomes Baldwin's first war, a war of alliances, a war of masks, a war where the greatest enemy is truth, every man twisting it, shaping it, selling it. The boy who cannot feel pain learns the politics of survival long before he learns the art of slaughter. And slowly, quietly, he becomes a king, not because they support him, but because they underestimate him. The kingdom Baldwin rules is holy but fragile, like a fortress built on dunes. The Crusader states are stretched thin, held together by pilgrims' faith and soldiers' exhaustion. And every year, a little more sand slips through their fingers. Tax caravans return half empty. Outposts report raids by Muslim scouts. Rumors spread that Saladin has unified Syria and Egypt under one banner, a storm preparing to sweep the land clean. But the Christian lords argue about marriages, about inheritance, about who should stand closest to the king during ceremonies. While the desert prepares to swallow them, the court prepares for banquets. Baldwin sits through these councils, listening to grown men debate trivialities with the intensity of war. One day, after hours of bickering over who should be guardian of some minor fief, Baldwin rises slowly, his limbs stiff, his glove hiding the worsening shape of his hand. "I do not care who hold the land," he says. "I care who will fight when Saladin reaches our walls." The room goes silent, because they all know the truth. Jerusalem is not ready, not for a siege, not for a campaign, not for anything that requires unity for more than 10 minutes. Baldwin's illness makes him hopeful he will die before decisions become difficult. But he doesn't. He lives, and he grows sharper. Each morning, he survives another hour longer than the prophecies allow. Each week, he becomes a king not because the crown fits him, but because no one else is brave enough to take its weight. He walks the walls of Jerusalem at dawn, staring across the desert, imagining Saladin's banners rising from the horizon. He feels the wind on his cheeks, cool and bitter, and thinks, "This kingdom is not stone. It is dust pretending to be stone." He must find a way to bind it together before the sands bury them all. As Baldwin grows into his mid-teens, he discovers the cruelest irony of all. Everywhere he goes, he inspires two opposite reactions, reverence and rejection. Pilgrims bow before him, whispering that he is touched by God, a king who suffers yet rules. But some barons flinch when he removes a glove. Some servants avoid touching anything he uses. Some mothers pull their children away from the path he walks. Leprosy is not just a disease. It is a story society tells itself, about impurity, about sin, about divine punishment. Baldwin becomes a living contradiction, a holy king with an unholy illness. He feels it during councils, during ceremonies, during every moment his body betrays him. Sometimes, when he removes his gloves at night, his fingers look mottled, stiff, foreign, a reminder that time is not on his side. And yet, he refuses to retreat behind curtains like so many expect. He attends parades. He rides in public. He trains with the knights, even when his legs tremble so violently he needs help dismounting. Because if he disappears, the kingdom will fracture. If he shows weakness, the vultures in the court will tear each other apart. And if he dies, Jerusalem is lost. So he forces himself into the light. He becomes a symbol of resistance, of endurance, of a kingdom refusing to surrender even as its foundations crack. The Templars start to respect him. The Hospitallers quietly admire him. Even skeptical barons begin to understand. This boy is not meant to fade. He is meant to hold the kingdom together by sheer will, even as his own flesh breaks apart. Every sunset, Baldwin asks his attendants to wheel him up to the palace roof. From there he watches the city, its crowded markets, its glowing lamps, its ancient stones. And each time he makes the same silent promise. I will keep this kingdom alive, as long as I stay alive. A vow that carries with it a shadow, because he also knows Saladin is rising, a force not of sand, but of steel, a man preparing to test the strength of a boy king, who could not feel his own hands. And soon, very soon, their worlds will collide. Across the desert, far from Jerusalem's golden domes, a man surveys his army, not with fear, not with hesitation, with patience, with precision. Saladin, Sultan of Egypt and Syria, moves like a predator, calm, deliberate, unyielding. His eyes are dark pools of intelligence, his beard streaked with gray, his hand steady as he strokes the hilt of sword that has tasted blood across decades. The rumor of him reaches Baldwin long before the man himself. Stories from spies and merchants, pilgrims and soldiers, a sultan who unites men under faith and discipline, a man whose generosity to allies is matched only by cruelty to enemies, a general whose name is whispered in Jerusalem like a curse. And now, with 26,000 warriors at command, Saladin marches toward Crusader states. Desert winds rise behind him, carrying sand and fear. Every step of his army is a drumbeat, every flag a shadow. In the court of Jerusalem, Baldwin listens. His advisors speak of retreat, of diplomacy, of buying time. Every word is a knot tightening around Baldwin's chest, reminding him that the world beyond his walls is merciless. He sees in Saladin not just an enemy, but a test of everything he has become. Because the boy king knows the Sultan is patient. He will wait. He will probe. He will strike where least expected. And Baldwin, sick and trembling, must prepare for the impossible. Saladin's reputation is earned, not given. He moves armies as if they are extensions of his will. He cuts supply lines with surgical precision. He inspires loyalty that borders on devotion and fear that borders on despair. From Aleppo to Damascus, his banners rise, unify divided territories under one command. A desert storm gathers, and Jerusalem, fragile as sandcastles under wind, braces for impact. Meanwhile, Baldwin studies every scroll he can find, military treatises, accounts of previous Crusader battles, the movements of Saladin scouts. He cannot ride as fast as he once did. His fingers tremble. His palms are stiff. Yet he works with a mind sharper than any seasoned general in the city. Maps are spread across tables, waxed and polished, marked with routes, oases, and enemy encampments. Baldwin points to a line. We must annihilant the coast. We must protect Tiberias. And we must choose our ground carefully. The desert is our ally if we know how to use it. Advisors nod, some skeptically, some cautiously, because Baldwin is young, because Baldwin is ill, because Baldwin's very presence challenges every assumption about strength, about courage, about leadership. He begins forming strategies that few men dare to consider. Ambushes, sudden charges, psychological tactics designed to make Saladin hesitate. A king who cannot feel pain himself is forcing the world to feel it. And Saladin, the Lion of the East, is moving closer. Every day, his army casts a longer shadow over Jerusalem. Every night, Baldwin dreams of steel clashing, of blood on sand, of the impossible odds stacked against him. The tension in Jerusalem is palpable. The markets are quieter. The streets are wary. The air tastes of anticipation, fear, and incense. Baldwin walks along the city walls at dawn. From this vantage, he can see the horizon, the point where desert meets sky, where possibility meets inevitability. Somewhere beyond those hills, Saladin's banners ripple in the morning light, like a tidal wave waiting to break. Baldwin's body aches. His gloves hide swollen fingers. His arms are weak, his legs tremble. But his mind is sharp, unyielding, alive. He studies every report from scouts, every whisper from merchants and pilgrims. He visualizes Saladin's army, 26,000 men, disciplined, hungry, ruthless. And he imagines what he has: 500 knights, 500 men to defend a city, and perhaps decide the fate of Christendom. He can feel the weight of history pressing down on him, the weight of expectation, of prophecy, of divine judgment. And yet, Baldwin does not flinch. Instead, he begins to see patterns where others see chaos. Gaps in the enemy's formation, weaknesses hidden beneath strength, paths through the desert that allow surprise, moments of courage that could change destiny. Baldwin whispers to himself, almost a prayer, "If I die, the kingdom dies. If I live, perhaps we can turn the tide." He imagines standing atop a hill, banners flapping, wind in his hair, the knights behind him, ready, the enemy before him, vast, unstoppable, terrifying. He is a boy. He is a leper. He is fragile. And yet, he is the king. A king who must now face the lion at the gates. A king who must transform fear into strategy, weakness into will, and impossibility into action. And in the still desert air, a single truth becomes clear. This is not a battle. merely for land. It is a battle for belief, for legacy, for survival. And soon, the worlds of Baldwin and Saladin will collide, not in council rooms or whispered warnings, but in the searing light of a desert afternoon, where courage will be tested against inevitability and where legends are born in blood and dust. Dawn breaks over Jerusalem, pale light spilling across the golden domes and narrow streets. Baldwin, now 15, leans over the walls of his palace, eyes tracing the distant horizon. Dust rises like a living tide. Saladin's army moving closer every day, a wave of steel and banners that threatens to wash away all that Baldwin has fought to preserve. Advisors gather in the council hall, voices urgent, frantic. They plead for retreat, for negotiation, for surrender. They warn of annihilation, of the thousands of men and horses, of Saladin's tactical genius. And Baldwin listens. He feels the weight of his body, failing as it is, reminding him of every limitation, every weakness. His right hand trembles. His legs ache. His fingers are stiff, almost useless. He closes his eyes. He sees the faces of his people, the farmers in the fields, the priests in the churches, the children who laugh in the streets. Every one of them depends on him. Every heartbeat echoes against the stone of the city walls. The decision is simple in theory. Retreat, hide, save what remains. But Baldwin's heart refuses simplicity. We will march. His voice is calm, almost fragile, yet inside it carries the weight of inevitability. We will meet him. We will fight. A collective gasp fills the room. Whispers erupt. Some barons shake their heads. Others glance nervously at each other. They see a sick boy, frail, fragile, doomed. They do not see the mind calculating every possibility. They do not see the courage that refuses to yield to fear. Baldwin's choice is made. Retreat is not an option. Death is a possibility. Glory is unlikely. And yet, in the desert of impossibilities, he chooses to stand. Preparations begin immediately. Cavalry units are readied. Supplies are packed into carts, yet every ounce is precious. Every misstep in logistics could spell disaster. Baldwin rides through the city on his horse, glove hiding the twisted fingers that had begun to betray him completely. Knights bow as he passes, a mixture of awe and fear in their eyes. He studies the terrain with meticulous care. Small hills, dry riverbeds, narrow passes, everything that could become either a trap or a weapon. Scouts ride ahead into the shimmering horizon, eyes straining against the heat and light. Baldwin listens to their reports, memorizing every detail, every shift in the sand, every glint of distant armor. The men whisper about the odds. 500 knights against 26,000, a child against a king's army. Impossible, foolish, suicide, and Baldwin lets them whisper, because he knows something they do not. War is not just numbers. War is timing, courage, and the element of surprise. And Baldwin has time on his side only if he can strike before Saladin expects it. At night, he walks among the troops, touching the reins of horses, listening to the breathing of men, watching flames flicker across their tired faces. He knows their fears, their doubts, and he knows he must embody the resolve that they lack. He prays quietly, not for victory, not for protection, but for clarity. The desert will be merciless. Mistakes will be fatal. And yet, in the heart of this harsh, sun-baked landscape, Baldwin begins to shape a plan that could transform impossible odds into a story no one will ever forget. The morning arrives, blistering and bright. Baldwin mounts his horse, pale and thin, glove hiding his crippled hand. Behind him, 500 knights follow, their armor glinting in the sun, their faces a mixture of fear, faith, and obedience. The desert stretches endlessly, waves of sand rolling like the sea, empty, barren, but deadly. Every step feels heavier, each mile a challenge to the spirit as well as the body. Baldwin's horse stumbles once, twice. His fingers clutch the reins with what strength remains. He does not falter. Every mile taken is a statement. We are here. We will face the storm. And no army, no matter how vast, can break the will of those who refuse to bend. The knights exchange glances, doubts simmering in the heat. But Baldwin rides among them. speaking little, commanding presence without words. The desert is not just terrain. It is a crucible, and he intends to shape the men under his command into something unbreakable. At midday, scouts return with reports. Saladin's forces are encamped nearby, unaware that the small Christian army is advancing with purpose. Baldwin studies the formations, memorizes every ridge and hill, and in a moment of clarity, sees a path through the desert that could allow 500 men to strike the army of 26,000 before it can react. The stakes are impossible. The odds laugh in the face of reason. Every rational mind would turn back. But Baldwin is no ordinary mind. He is the boy who should not have been king. He is the sick child who has survived whispers, prophecies, and doubts. He is the king who chooses to march into the desert, not because he is reckless, but because he knows that courage is the only currency that can outweigh numbers. And so, the small army presses forward. The sun burns, the sand shifts, and the wind carries a strange whisper. Perhaps the desert itself knows something is about to happen. A battle looms on the horizon, one that will test the limits of bravery, strategy, and faith. A battle where a sick boy and 500 knights will confront an army of 26,000. A battle that will become legend. The desert stretches endless, golden and white under the blazing sun. Saladin's 26,000 men move like a living tide, banners snapping in the wind, armor glinting in the afternoon light. Dust rises behind every horse, filling the horizon with a haze of heat and menace. And in the distance, barely 500 knights appear, tiny dots on the edge of the world, led by a boy king whose body trembles but whose mind is steel. Baldwin sits upright in the saddle, glove-hiding fingers twisted by disease. His eyes sweep the desert, memorizing every rise and dip, every patch of sparse vegetation, every glint that might betray an enemy scout. The knights whisper among themselves, tension vibrating in the air like a drum. Some cannot believe the odds. Some pray silently. Some steel themselves, knowing they follow a king whose courage dwarfs their fear. Baldwin's horse shifts beneath him. The wind carries the scent of heat and sand, mingling with the iron tang of distant warriors. He takes a deep breath, tasting the desert in all its cruelty and promise. And then he speaks, not loudly, but in a voice that resonates across the small army. Hold your lines. Wait for my signal. Remember what you fight for. Remember who we are. The knights nod, hands tightening on reins and swords. Baldwin watches the enemy. He knows Saladin is confident, perhaps even overconfident. He knows that the tide of 26,000 may break at the first hint of unexpected courage. In that still, unbearable tension, the desert seems to hold its breath. And then Baldwin moves. The boy king raises a hand. A signal. The knights stir like a coiled spring, hooves kicking up sand, lances glinting in the sun. The charge begins. The ground shakes beneath them. The desert air roars. Horses scream. Knights shout. Metal clashes with metal. 500 against 26,000. Impossible. Insane. Legendary. Baldwin rides at the front, cloak snapping in the wind. He clutches the reins with his left hand, the right hidden in its glove, useless but present. His face is pale, drawn but unyielding. Behind him, the knights follow without hesitation, eyes wide with fear but hearts set on courage. Saladin's scouts see the small force and laugh. They assume the Christians will scatter. They do not know they are about to meet a storm that cannot be measured in numbers. Baldwin strikes at the enemy's flank with precision. The knights cut through the disorganized lines, moving like lightning through the desert. Confusion spreads among Saladin's men. Shields collide. Screams echo. Horses rear. Dust and sweat, blood and sand mingle into a chaotic symphony. Time seems to slow. Baldwin's mind is a blade, cutting through the chaos, seeing openings, predicting reactions. He directs the knights with subtle gestures, every motion deliberate. And then he sees Saladin, far on a hill, banners waving, a calm lion watching his prey struggle. Baldwin meets that gaze, unflinching. It is a silent challenge, a statement. I am here. I will not yield. The small Christian force exploits every mistake, every hesitation. Knights surge, cutting down men in waves. The desert, once a trap, becomes an ally. Tight passes and ridges amplify their charge, turning the tide of numbers into chaos. By midday, the unthinkable is happening. The army of 26,000 is faltering. Soldiers break ranks, scatter, panic. Saladin rallies, but the shock is too great. Baldwin's courage, strategy, and sheer audacity have shattered the rhythm of the impossible. Hours pass like minutes. The desert is littered with the echoes of war. Clashing swords, neighing horses, shouted commands, cries of pain, prayers whispered into the wind. Baldwin rides through it all relentless, directing charges, encouraging knights, pointing out weak spots. Fatigue claws at him. His legs burn. His body trembles uncontrollably. Every nerve aches, but his mind is sharper than ever, alive with the rhythm of battle. He becomes almost a force of nature, small in body but immense in command. Saladin realizes the danger too late. His army is fractured. Panic spreads like wildfire. Retreat becomes the only option. The Lion of the East is forced to withdraw, humiliated, while Baldwin's army, tiny, weary, miraculous, remains standing. And in the heat of victory, Baldwin dismounts briefly, touching the ground with hands that feel nothing, but knowing has defied everything. Expectation, illness, numbers, fate itself. The knights around him cheer, exhausted, exhilarated, in awe of the boy who has become a legend. The battlefield is silent now, save for the wind carrying sand and distant cries. Baldwin looks across the desert. Victory is theirs, but the cost is heavy. Bodies lie scattered. Horses are fallen. The desert swallows the traces of glory and horror alike. Yet Baldwin knows this. Legends are not written in safety. They are carved out of courage against impossible odds. He has done what no one believed possible. And as the sun sets behind the hills, bleeding red across the desert, Baldwin whispers, almost to himself, "We are still here. We fight still. And the world will remember that we dared when all odds said we should not." The desert, cruel and infinite, seems to echo back a quiet acknowledgement of the impossible triumph. And for a brief, shining moment, a sick boy with crippled hands has become a king who could not be defeated. Not by men, not by fate, not even by time. The desert is quiet now. Only the wind moves across the dunes, carrying sand and the faint scent of blood, sweat, and horses. Baldwin force sits atop a hill overlooking the battlefield of Montgisard. His body aches in ways he cannot name. Each movement reminds him that he is fragile, mortal, yet unbroken. The knights gather around, battered and exhausted, faces streaked with dust and sweat. They look to Baldwin not just as a king, but as a living legend. Even in victory, silence hangs heavily. Victory carries its own weight. The remnants of Saladin's army retreat across the horizon, their banners disappearing into the haze of desert heat. Jerusalem is safe, at least for now. But Baldwin knows safety is fleeting. The threat will return, stronger, smarter. History does not pause. He dismounts, glove hiding hands twisted and stiff from leprosy, and touches the desert floor. It is warm, coarse, unyielding. He feels nothing, and yet he feels everything. The triumph, the terror, the cost. Victory is hollow without those lost. Knights lie scattered, some breathing, some gone. Baldwin walks among them, whispering prayers and words of thanks. He sees courage etched in every scar, every burn, every faltering step. And he wonders quietly if the desert itself will remember this day. Baldwin returns to Jerusalem on a palanquin, carried by knights whose respect for him has deepened beyond fear. The city erupts in celebration, banners flying, bells ringing, incense rising. Pilgrims and citizens cheer the boy who defied death, disease, and overwhelming odds. Yet Baldwin sees the cracks in the city's golden facade. The kingdom is fragile. The barons still squabble. The Templars and Hospitallers debate endlessly. Jerusalem's streets are alive with triumph, but he knows triumph is temporary and peace often fleeting. He walks among his people, listening to whispers, feeling their fear, their awe, their hope. He understands that leadership is not only in winning battles. It is in guiding a people through uncertainty, in shoulder responsibility that others cannot even imagine. The crown feels heavier than ever. He touches it, worn and warm against his hair, and recalls every moment that brought him here. The sickness, the whispers, the betrayals, the quiet resolve. Every choice, every strategy, every ride across the desert has led to this fragile, golden moment. He realizes that true victory is not measured in bodies slain, nor banners captured, nor armies routed. It is measured in endurance, in the survival of spirit, in the ability to inspire courage against impossibility. Baldwin has done all this, and yet he knows the war is far from over. Saladin will return. Other threats loom. The desert will demand its due again. But for now, Jerusalem breathes, and Baldwin allows himself a fleeting sense of triumph. Night falls over the city. Candles flicker in the palace windows. Baldwin sits alone on a balcony, wind tugging at his cloak, moonlight painting silver across his pale face. He is a boy no longer, yet not fully a man, caught between flesh and legend. He recalls the desert, the charge, the impossible odds, the cries of knights, the clash of steel. It all rises in his mind like a symphony of chaos and courage. His fingers tremble in their gloves, stiff and unfeeling, but his heart feels every beat of the battle. A gentle wind carries whispers across the rooftops, echoes of the day's glory and the weight of mortality. Baldwin smiles faintly, not with triumph, but with understanding. Legends are fragile, like castles built on sand. They rise, shine, and fade. But some endure, etched into memory, carrying the hearts of those who witnessed them, retold across generations. Baldwin knows this. He will not live forever. His body will continue to betray him. Disease will progress. Time will demand its due. Yet the story of Montgisard, the courage of a boy king against impossible odds, will endure. He looks at the city below, golden and fragile, and whispers, "We survived because we dared. We survived because we refused to yield." And the world will remember. The candles flicker, mirroring the distant desert sun. The wind carries the scent of sand, sweat, and faith. And in that moment, Baldwin understands the full measure of his life. It is not in the battles he won, nor the enemies he defeated. It is in the courage to stand, to act, to endure. It is in the legacy carved in blood, dust, and the hearts of those who witnessed it. The boy king who should not have ruled, who should not have lived, has become immortal, not in body, but in story, in legend, in the echo of courage that will resonate through time. And Jerusalem, fragile, golden, eternal, will carry that story forever.